Hello everyone, welcome to Scorched Earth Toys at AndyMoon.com's review of Kaiyodo's Revoltech Transformable VF-1 toys. These toys were released in January 2010 with the VF-1A Hikaru from Do You Remember Love, as well as the VF-1S Fokker. The next month we got the VF-1J Hikaru from the TV series, and that was followed by the VF-1J Max in Miria toys later that year as website or store exclusives. They all retailed for a hair under 2,300 yen. Inside the box, you'll get the very important Revoltech plastic coin, which I have no idea what it does. You'll get a heat shield. You'll get a head, which obviously is very important. 6 pairs of fixed-posed hands. 2 little toothpick-type mechanisms that I'll be showing you in a little bit here. And a gun, a plastic box for holding your little parts. And attached to the back of the plastic tray is a display stand. You get some pretty terrible instructions as well as an advertisement. Before you start playing with your toy, go to the box and find its head. You're going to need to install the head on this peg right here. You'll be removing the head if you transform to Batroid mode later and then reinstalling. Just slides on that peg, although that peg does move a little bit, so that can be a little tricky. As you handle the toy, you'll realize that it feels soft and rubbery, not quite the firm plastic you might be used to if you hold premium toys more frequently. You'll also notice it's pretty small. Here's a picture that shows how it stacks up against Toynami's 1/100 scale VF-1 and the Bandai High Metal R. You could also see that it's a little bit trailing behind as far as the visual aesthetic goes. So there's obviously not much to the display stand that comes with the toy. I'll remove it here. It is just clear plastic. It has a little peg at the end. You can swivel at the base, and you can swivel at the peg, and the peg itself can swivel. So all of that does allow for some flexibility in how you display the toy, except it's not a very heavy base, and your connection points to the toy are very limited. So you do have a point at the back of the gun, and that does allow you, since it's just a round peg going into a round slot, to also rotate the toy on that display stand. But you can see my display stand's leaning pretty hard when you attach it to the very back of the toy like that. Your other option is the under the nose. Pivot that up, and we can put it on the nose. That is probably more for Gerwalk mode, and obviously it's a little weird looking. You'll also note that the wing fell off my toy, and that is something that will happen to you very frequently. It's just, there's a peg within the wing that goes on a little slot here, and so if you do try to do anything with the wings, they're pegging upward into the toy, so that will make those wings pop off. This little trap door on the back also, every time I handle the toy, just gets recessed further than it should be. You can see there's a clear canopy, but no pilot inside. There's a big ball right underneath the cockpit. The head is pretty far back, and from the side you can't see it at all. There's just more Revoltech joints everywhere. Gap at the knee. This is not an attractive toy. For less than 2,300 yen, you should have lower expectations, but I don't know that they should be this low. Handling the toy is a real pain in the butt. If I wanted to bring the wings back right now, they most certainly would fall off. There are no landing gear accessories. You have to use the display stand. There's nothing like removable intake covers that you would see on higher end toys like Bandai's High Metals. The fins don't really lock into place, so handling them, you'll knock them askew too. So all in all, it's an ugly, poorly held together fighter mode. Maybe we should transform it into Gerwalk mode and see if that does better. Usually I do separate transformation videos, but since this is such a simple toy, I'm going to go ahead and do it all in one shot. I'm going to go ahead and begin transforming this toy by just pulling the legs apart from the center. So grab on either side and just pull away, and you can see there's a little peg on the arm that's holding the leg on. So there you go, that is now freed. The next step is a little bizarre. There are 2 pegs that extend from the arms into the backpack, so I'm just going to lift gently up on my backpack, and expose those two rather large pegs that were sliding into those two slots on the backpack. That then allows me to free up my arms, which are pegged together by the gun also. So here you go. Arm is free, and you can see, let's get this off. Okay, so here is my gun now with a piece in the center that is used strictly for attaching in fighter mode. You want the long end going forward towards the nose of the craft and the shorter end towards the butt. These two pegs then slip into these two slots and hold the arms together. Okay, now you're going to go to your little selection of parts and grab this part here, and we're going to go ahead and convert the gun into Batroid Gerwalk mode. Just slide that in, slide this in, and there you have it. There's your gun, ready for Gerwalk or Batroid mode. Same mechanism that you would see on like a Toynami toy, and it does hold together pretty well. Alright, so here's where we are. We're going to go ahead and just bring the legs forward on a Gerwalk joint. This is very standard VF-1 procedure. You can bring the legs a little forward at the knees, and you can open up the feet, which I was a little surprised that even these joints are the little Revoltech joints. So they definitely went as crazy as they could using Revoltech joints every possible way. Alright, we're going to go ahead and take care of this backpack now. Just fold your fins over and flap it on top, and it'll make it so that constantly recessing door in the back doesn't bother you quite as much once it's covered up. Although it is weird, the backpack does swivel either direction, so you have to make sure you got it lined up nice and straight. Turning our attention to the bottom of the toy, we have a double jointed Revoltech joint that we are now just going to use to bring the arm out. And we will twist, hopefully without breaking the joint, the arm around and put it roughly where we would want it to be. Right about there. So again, there goes my wing. Bring the joint out. You can spin it forward and hold the joint together while you twist the arm to get it into Gerwalk position, like so. We're pretty close at this point, but we do have to get the arms converted over, or the fists I should say. So we're going to go ahead and just pull them forward. And then that creates a little gap at the top there, so we can just push this down and conceal that within the arm. So same thing on the other side. Here's the peg sticking up. I'm rotating the fist all the way forward as much as I can, which creates just enough room to put that peg in. And then to close the fist back up, hopefully. There we go. So now you are in Gerwalk mode, and you're probably thinking like, you sure? Because those arms are just kind of dangling there. Yeah, no, I'm sure. That's just what they do, is they dangle. The knees have a twist, because there's a Revoltech joint right there. Or revolver joint, I think they call them. So you can get, you know, a pretty decent pose. If your intakes have come unpegged, push up on them, because that will peg them back in. And then we could try to get this thing in a nice pose. Here we are in Gerwalk mode. You may have noticed before I did not mention any sort of wing weaponry. You might have thought you could go grab your regular Revoltech VF-1 missile pods and put them on the wings. You can't. There are no hard points, just little dots that look like hard points. And even if you could, the weight of anything on these wings is going to cause them to drop out. So can't do that. You may have noticed that the integrated hands on this toy are awful. They are tiny. But you do, if you want to use the gun, you can't even use the integrated hand, you're going to have to go find your optional fists. So here is the one where the gun can go into, as you can tell by the slot. You can go ahead and put your gun in there. It's a nice tight fit. So there you go. You know that gun's not going anywhere, but now you have to get the fist off the toy. It's just a peg, but it's a peg with a little fat end on it, and it's on a rotating or pivoting gimmick. So it's not the easiest thing actually to pull the old hand off, nor is it very easy to put the new hand on. So know that this is a pain in the butt, but you can make it happen. Alright, there it goes. So obviously now I would want to do the same thing with the other fist, because it looks even worse now that I've taken off the other diminutive fist. But we don't really have to do that right now. Let's go ahead and keep transforming the toy and get to Batroid. Okay, we were just discussing the fist mechanism, and before I really get into transformation, I think it's a good time to look a little closer at one of the bizarre aspects of the design here. Here's the peg that the fist was attached to. Here's the second larger fist that would go on there right now. And inside you could see that peg that previously flipped up out of the arm and grabbed the backpack in fighter mode. When you go to transform the toy back to fighter mode, you're going to need to get that peg back out. And in order to do that, they gave you this little fishing hook. And so you want to fish inside there, grab your peg, and pull it up. And if you're having problems installing the fist, it might be because this peg is no longer pressing up against the back. So you want to get it, pull it up. Alright, so when it's up at the top like this, and I've got the door closed, that should stop this from pivoting too much while you try to put the fist on. And then again, if you want to go back to fighter mode, you need to get in there and get that hook all the way out, or that peg all the way out, so it can get back into the backpack in fighter mode. So, very curious design choices there. Rather than have the wings constantly pop off, I've just gone ahead and removed them at this point. I'm going to remove also the canopy by just pulling upward and replace it with the heat shield, which has a little tooth in the front and a couple grooves in the back. And you can just push that right on top, like so. Then we're going to go ahead and flip the toy over. Now what you want to do is pop this little trap door forward and then swing the legs up and around. That is a lot easier said than done. I can't really get into this trap door to swing it open. So what I'm going to do instead is I free the legs up, and then I just go ahead and I pull out this Revoltech joint, and then I can get full access to that door where I could pop it open, and I could just push that joint right back into the hole where it came from, and then swing the joint through that little trap door. And 1 second, let's get it right where we need it. Here it goes. You can see where it's trying to go through. There. So now we have the legs in more of their Batroid position. I just went ahead and straightened them out also. Here's that same step from a different angle. You see there's a little hole here and a peg there. As you slide that door through the opening, that peg then goes into the nose of the craft to make sure that's locked and secure in that position. If the head lasers fall off your toy while you're handling it, just go ahead and push them back in. There's no problem with that. Now what we want to do is pop free 2 little pegs on either side of the canopy from their chest holes, and that's going to allow us to bring the chest up and over, and then you can see there's that little hole in the center that's going to connect to that peg on the canopy now. And just press in, and it should lock securely. So now we look something like this. We're going to go ahead and yank the head off, which again, the lasers fall off, you can just press them back on. You are then going to just break the back of the toy, which allows you to rotate around and over, and then there's this peg on the back and a hole right there, and you are going to get that to slide down and into position. In doing this, you'll see there are grooves in this back plate that accommodate the round joints. So everything should line up and kind of lock into place. When you get that down there, these joints are now locked into their position. So unlike Gerwalk mode, they won't just be dangling down on you. Now we need our neck peg back, so let's just open this up, pull the peg up, close those, and reapply our head. It's maybe a little tricky because that peg is going to move around on you, so might take a little bit of patience, but should slide on just like that. And if your arm looks like this, rotate it over and then bring it down, and you will see that it is now in the proper Batroid position. Peg those wings back on and you are now in Batroid mode. And boy, does it look like a thing. Okay, I've taken off the gun, and now we are going to go through articulation, which you would hope would be the strong suit of this rather weak otherwise toy. You do have a shoulder, and as you saw, as through transformation, the ability to pivot it out like that, those are all good things. You have a joint that twists at the elbow, and the elbow does allow you to get so high. Now, the good thing about these joints also is that you can always extend them out a little bit and get a little further range of motion. So that is an option available to you. The hands will spin on their little pegs, much like the head will spin, and the guns on the sides of the head will spin. Going down, there's no back articulation, which when I first saw how the chest was on here, I thought, great, there's going to be ability to pivot forward the chest. There is not, so that's a bummer in my eyes. The waist does not exist. There is no waist. You can bring the hips way out, though, so that's good to see. And you can bring them forward, like so, or back, but you're going to run into the wings going that way. You do have your Gerwalk joint, of course, and you have the joint at the knee that lets you spin it around or come way back or bring it forward. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there are the little revolver joints in the feet as well, so you can go ahead and twist your foot however you like it for the pose that you are trying to get. So it looks very dynamic, and it has the articulation you would expect from a VF-1 toy. But it doesn't really go much further than that, which is a little bit of a letdown considering how ugly it is. They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so here is the transformable Revoltech up against what I would consider its competition to be. It's ugly. It's right there with the Band Presto. If what they were trying to do was make a toy roughly equivalent to the Band Presto, then I suppose they succeeded. I would give the edge over the Toynami, although clearly it's got some artistic license going on in a few places, and ultimately that Bandai High Metal just trounces the competition, but it is by far the most expensive in this lineup. The Kaiyodo Transformable VF-1 feels like it was an experiment by an engineer at Kaiyodo to try to take a VF-1 and the Revoltech joints and make something transformable. It does not feel like a product that was ever meant to be sold to the public, so I would recommend easily avoiding it. It's a compromise in every single mode, just for the sake of using Revoltech joints. It doesn't do any mode particularly well. It always looks ugly, so just avoid it. If you want a really dynamic VF-1, then you're talking about Batroid mode particular, you would just go to the regular Revoltech non-transformable VF-1, or Yamato gnu'dou, which I apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Those are much better Batroid mode toys, and the Kaiyodo doesn't bring anything to the table in Gerwalk and Fighter mode, so just avoid these toys. Check out my full article on Any Moon, and thanks for watching.